We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a regular monthly board meeting for Monday, December 13, 2021. At this time, the clerk will do roll call.
Alderman Dill.
Present.
Alderman Dye. Alderman Hotchkiss.
Present.
Alderman Beardsley.
Present.
Mayor Bashir.
Present. Okay, first item on the agenda is the November financial report. Has everybody had a chance to go over it? Any questions or concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the November financial report.
Have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the November collector's report. Anybody have any questions, concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the November collector's report.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the regular board meeting minutes for November the 8th, 2021. Any questions, concerns, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we accept the regular meeting minutes for November 8th, 2021.
Have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is special session meeting minutes for the CDBG/CB grant dated November 29th, 2021.
I'll make a motion that we accept the special session minutes dated November 29th, 2021.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the personnel meeting minutes from November 4th, 2021. Any questions, concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the personnel meetings for November 4th, 2021.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is personnel meeting minutes from November 22nd, 2021.
I'll make a motion that we accept the personnel meeting minutes for November 22nd, 2021.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is personnel meeting minutes dated November 29th, 2021. Questions, concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the personnel meeting minutes November 29th, 2021.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Next item on the agenda is the code enforcement report for the month of November 2021. It reads as follows. Morehouse Code Enforcement Report to Board of Sheriffs and the Board of Aldermen from Colin Cecil regarding code enforcement activity. Date, November 22nd, 2021. For the month of November up to November 22nd, 2021, there was property maintenance issues. A total of 21 notices of violation have been sent. Next item is condemnation. One letter regarding condemnation has been sent. Additional letters to be sent out. Other activity in progress, update E-Code 360, update the municipal code, and drafting an ordinance for adoption of the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code. End report. If there's no questions or concerns,
I do. 21, is that to date or is that only for the month of November?
all I know is what is
Okay.
enclosed in the
Can we get a copy of September and October? He was hired in September, right?
if he has them. Yeah.
Okay, September and October. And just a copy of the general letter that he sends out. I know you've seen one, I haven't seen one, so I don't know.
So
Somebody-
just a template form of what
Yeah,
he sends
yeah,
out.
what
No
we
problem.
can do that, so September.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the code enforcement report for November 2021.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? All right, next item on the agenda is an update on the Onan generator. There's some emails enclosed that I sent out to the board. So the Onan generator, it has on the side of the starter, there's a solenoid, and it's stuck open, and it caused the starter to burn up. So there's a service bulletin from Onan that was out in the field, calling for the solenoid to be moved from the starter, mounted to the bottom with a vibration, so it won't vibrate as bad. So that service bulletin, it never got completed, and it caused the starter to stick open, and it burnt the starter up. So Onan, or Cummins, come out and replace the starter on it. They're still waiting to get back with me since the service bulletin was out, but Cummins never followed up, whether or not they're gonna waive some of the cost or eat the entire cost of the starter replacement and the labor. I've not yet heard back one way or the other of how they're gonna handle it. So fingers crossed, they do what's right and work with the city on that. Next in your packet is, I asked them, well, when the service tech was out, he stated that the generator has not been serviced since it was put online. It was put online in March of 2019. So the oil filter, fuel filters, air filters, none of the service.
Was that under a service contract?
No. So none of the service has been completed on the generator. So what I asked for them to prepare for us was a maintenance proposal. And you can read through your packet the maintenance proposal. And it's for 3 years of service. The service, if the board chooses to go forward with this, the service will be completed on March 1st of each year. And they recommend that the batteries be replaced every 3 years. So as you'll see, year one, full service is $702.24, with replacing the battery cost, $427.74, for year one total, $1,129.98. Year two, March service would be $722.90, and year three would be $744.17. Now, I asked them to put a separate line item for additional things outside of the basic service of the unit. Other things that they offer is fuel analysis. They test the fuel to see if diesel fuel can build algae. So the basic fuel analysis for 1 year is 2707, advanced is 9122. Optional oil analysis, basic is $15.14, advanced is $24.82 per year, and the optional coolant analysis is $18.24, and they don't have an advanced or basic on the coolant analysis. Further in the packet, you'll see a breakdown of what they would test for in the fuel. Elemental metals, particle count, water and sediment, Carl Fisher water, thermal stability, bacteria, fungi, and mold, and a pour point. They have a basic column and an advanced column. Oil, they test for elemental metals, fuel dilution, soot, water, viscosity, the base number, the acidic number, and oxidation, nitration. And on coolant, they test for elemental metals, visuals, antifreeze percentage, freeze point, boil point, nitrates, SCA number, pH, specific conductance, total dissolved solids, hardness, and IC7 degradation acids.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't have that page that you're reading off of.
Okay, I sent it in an email to everyone.
Okay.
And did you get this page.
Yeah,
Okay, that was all in the email.
okay,
It was just more points to that.
okay.
It was a attached PDF in there. And then further on, you'll see what the general plan maintenance, they go into detail of everything that would be done, what they would do for the battery charging system, the engine, the fuel system, the cooling system, the controls, the actual generator itself, general parts of the generator, the voltage, automatic transfer switch, automatic transfer switch, the load bank testing, and additional services. So this isn't something that we have to vote on tonight, but it's something that we do need to think about. You know, it does the city no good to have a $100,000 generator sitting over there, and we don't do preventative maintenance on it.
And that was gonna be my question. What is the value of the generator?
I don't have a total
When was it?
value. It was put in March 19,
Where's it at?
2019. So I'm addressing the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was
Purchased in
put
2019 or installed?
in, installed. It went online March 19th of 19.
So if we had, I mean, what's replacement or what's the
Well, I
cost
have
of
to
a brand
look
new
in
one? Okay,
insurance. It's a 256 kilowatt generator.
okay.
So I can try to dig up more of that in one of these emails. This Erin Zare, I told her that I don't have a copy of manuals, I don't have keys, so she's going to provide to the city at no charge copies of the manuals and keys so it can be locked. None of that was provided to me, and it's not at City Hall, and it's not at the water plant either. So, excuse me, it's a 250 kilowatt, no, not 256 kilowatt.
Should we table it? till
We can
get some
table
more
it, get some
information?
more information, y'all can chew this over, but it's something that, you know, March is when it needs to be
Decided.
prior to
Right.
March 1st.
And this quote, it's still good if we table it for another month?
That's my understanding. She says in here, it expires, the quote expires February 8th of 2022. And if I broke down some of the numbers, there's just the total agreement amount without having the fuel, coolant, and oil test done, it would total over 3 years, $2,597.05. And then it shows there the breakdown every March what it would cost.
It's right next to the water plant, by the way. But I'm a big believer in maintaining equipment that we have, especially high-priced dollar items like that. So, I mean, if the board wants to table it, that's fine, but I know my vote on this already, so.
So just to go one step further, if the city decides to go with this basic agreement and the advanced fluid analysis, that would bring the total cost for 3 years total, $2,999.89. If the city opted to go for a basic agreement, that would bring the 3-year total to $2,778.40. And Beth and Aaron's contact number is included in these emails. So anyone's free to phone either one of these individuals and ask any questions you'd like. Like I said, she's supposed to be getting back with me with copies of the manuals and keys for the gen set. So if you want it tabled, a motion to table it, and then move on.
I make a motion that we table the, how do you pronounce it again? Onan generator.
Have a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? That moves us on to the next item on the agenda, which is insurance bids. Last month's regular board meeting, we opened the sealed bids for the city's insurance. We received proposals from 2 companies, Stafford Levitt and Anderson Green Insurance. So, Alderman Dill, would you like to speak on
Yeah,
the 2 bids that we received?
I looked over both the bids and the proposal from Anderson Green actually, which they provided with a company called Moperm. It's a very well-known company for municipalities. But what they did is they didn't, I don't know where they got their information, because I spoke to Gail, earlier, Clerk Gail, and she said that she provided the same information to Anderson Green as the Levitt Group. But my point is, the items that they quoted for the water plant and the water tower and all the buildings was a lot lower than what was provided on the Levitt Group quote. So in my opinion, the Moperm quote, we don't even need to be considering that, because it doesn't have accurate figures, and it's about $10,000 more in premium. So we can set that aside, in my opinion. So let's talk about the Levitt Group quote. That's who we're with now. And I didn't see any changes from our current coverages as far as coverages go and deductibles. And they quoted Missouri Rural. That's who we're with now, Missouri Rural. So since that's the only quote available, besides the one that's really not a good quote, then my recommendation would be just to go ahead and stay with the Levitt Group for the same company that we're with now. Now, one other thing that they didn't quote though was law enforcement liability, which they said in an email that they could not quote that until we provided, I guess, a manual for our police force. And also, we've got to have active police personnel before they can quote that. So,
And to speak on the police department policy manual, the city attorney is working on the information that we provided to him and what other cities currently have.
they did provide also a list of all of our inland marine items that we had covered, as far as ladders and battery lights, radios. What I guess what the city needs to do, the clerk or the mayor, both of you get together and go through this list and make sure that we still have those items, so that way we can get them deleted off if we don't have them, or items added to the policy whenever, if we do have additional items. We don't have to do that, we don't have to iron that out tonight, but that's something that needs to be addressed. And the autos, we need to make sure that the schedule they have for all of our autos are accurate too.
Now, did she base this off of our current coverage? Now, James, you and I kind of went through the list several months back of what items y'all still had in inventory.
Yeah, not all of those were correct and everything. That we've added some stuff. I mean, like, now we've got the full, or well, we have one full complete set of extrication tools, which consists of a hydraulic pump, a spreader, a large combo tool spreader, a small one, and a ram. And then we got an additional combo tool and power unit here in the last like month or so that was donated to. So that's stuff that's, if it went out, would be a big expense. It probably needs to be added to that insurance. Like I said, if I can get a copy of that again, I'll probably have it somewhere. If I get a copy of that, I can go through and mark, you know, how many ladders we have, whatever.
And you can provide us with a current inventory.
Right.
That would be
There's gonna be-
beneficial.
There's gonna be some nickel and dime stuff, you know, that smaller stuff that may not be on there, but as far as like major expenses,
Big ticket item.
right.
Okay. Sounds good. Do you have any questions about the insurance?
No, I mean, I think the inventory though, we have discussed that before, and it's just something we've got to get implemented on all fronts, from maintenance to fire department, whatever, so that way we know, and then, so that would be,
Alderman Beardsley, any questions, comments on the insurance?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we stay with our current agent of Levitt Group with the Missouri Rural Company.
I'll second.
Have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, as far as the health insurance quote goes, they also supplied a health quote too, and nobody else supplied that, no other company. So this health insurance is from the Levitt Group also. What I would recommend we do with that, since we're not really sure on the employees that might participate in that program, I spoke with the agent earlier today, and he said that we can start that at any time, any month of the year. It doesn't have to be started on the 1st of January, of course. So-
And you don't get penalized starting it, not at first of the year.
So, and once we know the employees that may want to participate in that, they can get a quote pretty quickly. So I would recommend we table that.
Sounds good.
And also we could ask, well, we could ask for additional bids at that time too, or, you know.
For the group health,
Mhm. We could publicize it again if we wanted to. Yes, probably need to.
so you want to table the
Group health.
group health? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we table the group health insurance portion of the information in there.
Have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that moves us on to next item on the agenda, item number 12. And you'll see here, this is a preventative maintenance agreement through Vendor Engineering for the lift station. There's some new faces in the audience tonight. So if you aren't aware, all 4 lift stations in town have gotten new control panels, new controls, and set to get all new pumps. So that's a total of 8 pumps. The lift station in West Acres has both brand new pumps in the lift station currently. The 3 lift stations in town only have 1 new pump installed as of date. I know pretty much everybody's aware of the supply chain issues facing the country, and these are flight pumps, so they come from Sweden. So we do have new pumps, 1 new pump in each lift station in town, 2 new pumps in West Acres. And just as soon as Vendor gets the pumps in, they will be down to install them. And what this is a preventative maintenance agreement on those pumps. So Vendor will be responsible for coming down if the city chooses to enter into this. And the work that was completed to get the new pumps, the control panels, and the controls was just a few $100s shy of 150 grand. So by entering into a preventative maintenance agreement, this prolongs the life of the pumps. We have people that, lack of better terms, know what they're doing. They're the professionals when it comes to pulling these pumps, checking on the wear plates, checking the voltage, changing the oil in the pumps, changing the seals in the pumps, and it just prolongs the life of the pumps. And I'll go one step further on that. I'd sent out an email a few weeks back for the board members on phase 2 proposal from Vanderbilt. And I got that proposal on Thursday evening. Well, I got a phone call from Nick from Vanderbilt on Thursday evening. I got the proposal in my email Friday morning, this past Friday. Well, I received a phone call from Nick today that the county agreed to pay for the entire proposal, which is a total of $182,355. So I called Commissioner Aycock this afternoon, and he confirmed that yes, all three commissioners signed off on it, and it was sent to Vandeventer for them to start ordering everything required. And what this phase 2 involves is concrete repair in the bottom of the wet pits, the lift station wet pits, 8 new pump stands, new guide rails for all 8 pumps, new riser pipes coming out of the wet pit over into the valve boxes, and all new valves in all 4 valve pits. It also includes an additional spare pump, one 10 horsepower spare pump for in town, and one 3.9 horsepower pump for out in West Acres. The valve pits will have all new valves, all new piping. Everything will be as close to top to bottom new as possible. So we kind of owe it not only to ourselves, but with the county putting in this much money. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to start out fresh with, because our lift stations have been in bad shape for a long time. So back to this preventative maintenance agreement.
I don't want to interrupt you, Joe, but I think we need an applause for the new Maverick County Commissioners.
Yeah. They have been above and beyond.
That's how much,
Did you say that number again?
$330,000, is that what it total?
Well, it was just $200 shy of $150,000 in the first phase, and this one they just approved $182,355.
Yeah.
That's in addition to all the gravel they hauled, and in addition to the $116,000 of in-kind labor that they've committed to do if we get awarded the streets and drainage grant. So we're add all that up, minus the rock and labor that they did for the roads out in West Acres, and you're $447,000 and some change. So pushing close to $500,000 that the county has really helped out this community. And we've got a letter tonight that the board members are going to sign and send down there to them, just showing our gratitude.
That's less than a year's time.
Yes.
They committed that, yeah.
Yeah, and that's in addition to the $12,000 that they committed last year for the fire department for 12 new air packs for our volunteer fire department. So the county has really helped us out a lot. So back to this maintenance agreement. It breaks down, it's a 5-year agreement, and it breaks it down. Year 1 and year 2 is $4,215. Year 3 and year 4 is $4,350, and year 5 is $4,458. So I just kind of broke it down, year 1 and 2. So this is for fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. That comes out to $351 a month. Fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025. That comes out to $362.50 monthly, and then fiscal year 2026 breaks down to $371.50 a month. So the total 5-year agreement, preventive maintenance agreement, and in addition to this adds an additional, the standard flight warranty is prorated over the course of 5 years. By conducting annual maintenance with Vandeventer, the new pumps we will stand behind the 5-year warranty at 100% versus the manufacturer's prorated warranty. And I asked Nick today on the phone, so I would know, so I can inform the board, a 10 horsepower flight pump is $12,000 at today's prices, and a 3.9 horsepower flight pump for out in West Acres is just a bit shy of $9,000. So the 5-year preventive maintenance agreement totals $21,588, or if you break it down for 60 months, that's $359.80 a month. Or you could break it down even further. We have 360 active meters, 360 active sewer connections. That's about $1 extra a month spread out per resident.
Do we pay this out of ARPA?
That is a question I was going to ask Matt.
Okay.
He said in an email that Matt's the city attorney, for people that don't know. He has a meeting. He wanted us to put stuff that he would be involved in towards the end of our meeting, and he's going to do his best to get here. As you can see, this agreement, the quote was sent to me on November 23rd, 2021. We would need to enter, if the city chooses to enter into this, we would need to do so at the beginning of the year. So this, again, is not something that we have to vote on, but I would strongly advise the board to consider entering into a maintenance agreement.
I want to do this for sure, but I'm kind of like Alderman Hotchkiss. I want to know if we can pay this out of ARPA funds, so can we table this till the next meeting?
We absolutely can. I just want everyone to get a chance
Yeah.
to chew this over, review it,
Or even move it to the end of the night, I mean,
and if Matt,
and if he shows up and
Comes
we
in.
can make it, he comes in and makes a decision, and then if not, then we'll table it. Is that all right?
yeah, well, I mean, we can go ahead and table it now, and then we can revisit it
Okay.
at the end of the meeting. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we table the proposal for the maintenance agreement for the lift stations.
Have a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next item on the agenda. Dues for Missouri Rural Water membership renewal. The dues, 2022 dues are based on 395 connections at 58 cents apiece. And the table for the due structure comes down to this. 0 to 413 connections is $240. 2,414 plus connections is $1,400. Well, we fall under the minimum dues for connections since we have less than 413, so the annual dues for Missouri Rural Water is $240. Missouri Rural Water comes in, I'm sure y'all recall, when I first got elected, we was having issues with the floats at the Jackson Street lift station. I contacted Missouri Rural Water. They sent a guy over with his apprenticeship class, and his class went ahead and changed out the floats for us. So, and Missouri Rural Water does rate studies for water rates. They do energy loss studies, things of that nature. So I'll entertain a motion to pay the $240 dues to Missouri Rural Water Association.
I'll make a motion that we pay the 2022 membership dues to Missouri Rural Water Association, the amount of $240.
Have a motion on the floor?
You did say 220, right?
Oh, 220.
She said 240.
240, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, next item on the agenda is Delta Growers invoice for generator fuel. While the maintenance man was here changing the starter on the generator, we checked it, and it was below half a tank on the fuel. Coming into the winter season, figured it was time to go ahead and top it off. It took 577 gallons at $2.67 a gallon for a total of $1,545.78.
Can we, in the future, can we get that quarterly? Can we get it filled up quarterly or looked at quarterly instead of having a one-time?
Sure.
So, like like March,
3 months.
June, September, December, kind of look at that?
Well, the generator runs every Monday. It kicks on for 30 minutes. It transfers the switch at the water plant, and it powers the water plant for 30 minutes. Outside of bad weather or power going out, it just runs for 30 minutes a week. But yes, I agree with that. Kind of helps soften the blow, so to speak.
Yeah. I make a motion, we accept the Delta Growers Association diesel fuel bill for $1545.78.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, since we're waiting on the city attorney, hoping he'll be here. I'm gonna move down to, I'll turn it over to you, James, for the grant, for the, let you explain to the board and myself what you got here.
So, fire department, we put in last year for the same grant, we got the 5 mobile radios for all the trucks that did the most minutes, we were able to communicate back and forth with dispatch and stuff. This year, we put in for 22 pagers, because half of the pagers we had are missing, gone. Well, I'd say 3/4 of them, we don't have to view, Swiss phones. The rest of them we got, charters or broke, this and that. We were working off of a text page system. That went away by the wayside. The guy that was allowing me to use that completely shut the system off, which it got where it would work. Sometimes the page would come through a day or two later and everything. So we put in for 22 pagers, so we give everybody on the apartment, currently on the apartment, a new pager. So everybody would know there was a call and stuff. With that being said, we were awarded not empty, but the Department of Conservation grant for $7,986 for 22 pagers. That comes out to $363 a page, is what it comes out to be. So the way this works is, if you all approve whatever, that $7,986 got to be paid up front, basically. So we buy the pagers ourselves, we turn in an invoice with it, showing that's been paid for and everything. All that paperwork to the conservation, and they will return, send us a check back for 50% of that, which is $3,993. That's what they'll send back. So basically, for 22 pagers, we'll be paying $3,993 is what we'll be paying them all once they reimburse that. This has got to be done. If we do decide to do this, it's all got to be done. The paperwork's got to be turned in, be completed by February the 18th of 2022. Failure to do that will result in them basically saying it was a no grant. And if we turn things in after that, they won't reimburse anymore. So,
Can this be paid out of capital improvement?
That I'm not 100% sure. That would be a city attorney question. Just so everyone up here understands, the city is, if the city decides to go through with this, the city has to pay the full $7,986 up front.
correct, up front.
And then Department of Conservation will
Will
reimburse
reimburse.
50%.
Reimburse 50% of that, which is $1,993. So you're basically buying 22 pages for half price.
Yeah.
And we currently have 21 members on the department, so.
And how many pagers do you have now, James?
So we got a deal back a couple months ago, a month or two ago, with JCS Communication, and they sold us some used pagers. So we actually have 18, I guess, pagers or whatever, but they're used. So I mean, they could quit working at any time. The fire department bought those out of our checking account. We bought those for $50 a pager. Like I said, they're used. They're Motorola Mentor 5s, an older pager. But, so we currently have like 20 of them, I guess, or so, 18 to 20 of them.
You said previously that you was using some system and the gentleman took it offline.
So-
How is it dispatched through these pagers? Is there a monthly?
No, well,
Fee?
that's our contract through Sykeston, that we paid, well, now it's signed up, I guess, indefinitely, we don't have to sign a contract, we just pay them yearly. What our yearly contract is to Sykeston, and if any times with a call, they set the tones off in pages, and that's it.
And it goes from Sykeston
To the
dispatcher to those pagers.
Basically, the same thing as what I'm carrying right here, what he's got. It just goes straight to that, it goes off, as long as you're in the area response area, it goes off and tells you what the call is, where it's at, what's going on, you know, and everything from there, so.
Okay. And this has to be, all documentation has to be received, it says here, at their office by Friday, February 18th.
Yes.
So we have time to find out from the attorney whether this can be paid out of capital improvement, whether it has to be paid out of general. where the city has to come up with money to do this if the board decides to do it, correct? What kind of turnaround time, mail's kind of running slow, so
Right.
are you thinking
The,
January meeting at the latest, make a decision?
the place I found, which is called Pager and Wireless Service System, that's where I was gonna look at trying to get the pagers. They're the cheapest around here. That's, if you buy 21 or more, they brought it down to the $363 a pager. If you bought less than that, then the price goes up. So it was all based on how many you bought or whatever. That's buying it from a company online. Basically, you're making a purchase online, they're sending them to you. If we buy it local, they're close to $500 local if we're buying them from Cape. And there's a couple places in Cape that does that. So, I mean, I would definitely say, well, when we buy 22 of them, because that's what they allotted us, but we definitely would have to make that purchase in time for them to get it to us, get the invoice paid, them sending us something back saying, yeah, it's paid and everything, and then us mailing that to the conservation and having it there before February 18th.
Do we need to have a special session?
We could, once we find out from Matt. Would you be available to come back in during a special session?
Yeah, man, as long as I'm not at work sites, then I'll come back over.
Right. What's the rest of the board feel?
I definitely am very interested in getting this done for you, Chief, for sure.
So we want to table it?
I agree, you need the pagers, you need the
And
pagers.
that's how we get our call. We don't have a pager, then we don't know what the call is. And like I said, we were using a free system called Two Tone Detect, but the guy that set it up for me one of us having issues. Like I said, Sykes made send the page out, and it went through, basically the page went through a pager, then it went to a computer system, the computer system recorded it, and then they sent a text out. Well, it got where it was just lagging, maybe a couple of days for you to get the text. Well, at that time, the call's over, so people weren't able to respond. So this is how the actual pager is what goes off. That's how we know when there's an emergency.
Yeah, we won't have to wait till the next monthly meeting. We can,
Yeah, when we find out,
we can
one way or the other, we can call a special session and
just
get it done.
take 5 minutes to get it done.
That's fine. You just get with me on a day and stuff, and I'll try to look for you.
Okay.
Well, that way you're not so crunched. If we wait till January, you hear
Right.
from us and then try to do it,
Right,
then
it's
even
gonna
if
be
we,
time crunch, yeah, for sure, to get the product here and stuff. I mean, so, like you said, everything's behind right now on the shipping and stuff.
Even if, we're in a position to call a special session and you're working, I mean, does anybody have any questions to him, or is everybody pretty understanding of where we're at? Even if you weren't available to come in, I mean, we pretty much understand what's going on here, so.
I mean, like I said, if it's a day I'm working, I'll try to find somebody to cover for me for a couple hours or something.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't take long at all.
yeah.
and this is not coming out of the fire department's budget. This would come out of general, or would this come out of his budget?
Well, it would come out of the
Okay.
fire department's budget, yeah.
We just have to print some money real quick. So that we
I'll make a motion that we table the information concerning the grant for the pagers for the fire department.
Have a motion on the floor?
can- I second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, Matt's not here. It's almost 7:30, so we will go on. Let's go, you got the ordinances? All right. We'll start with the first. Okay. Yes, ma'am. We're gonna go ahead and read ordinance, or bill number 700.
An ordinance calling for the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse to decide whether the position of city collector shall remain an elected position pursuant to RSMO 79.050 and providing for submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the general election called and to be held in the city of Morehouse, Missouri on April 5th, 2022. Whereas the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri desire that the control and oversight of municipal offices be directed by the qualified voters of the city. And whereas the city is authorized under RSMO 79.050 to permit the voters to decide whether the position of city collector shall remain as an elected position or provide the authority for the mayor, upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen, to appoint a city collector. And whereas the Board of Aldermen requests the input of the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse, Missouri regarding this matter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri as follows. Section 1. Pursuant to the authority granted by RSMO 79050 as amended, the position of city collector, which at the current time is an elected office with a term of 2 years, may be submitted to the voters to determine whether the position shall remain as an elected position or be subject to appointment by the mayor upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen. Section 2. This measure shall be submitted to the qualified voters of Morehouse, Missouri for their approval as required by the provisions of RSMO 79.050 at the election hereby called and to be held in the city on April 5th, 2022. The ballot of submission shall contain substantially the following language. Shall the position of city collector in and for the city of Morehouse, Missouri be abolished in favor of the city collector position, which is appointed by the mayor upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen? If this proposition passes, the office of city collector shall be abolished and the city collector shall be appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen, and said appointee would not be required to be a resident of the city of Morehouse, Missouri. If this proposition fails, the position will remain an elected position and candidates for the office shall remain required to reside within the city limits. There's a yes and no. If you are in favor of the question, place an X in the box opposite yes. If you are opposed to the question, place an X in the box opposite no. Section 3. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date its passage and approval. Section 4. This ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage and approval by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri. First reading of the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri, this 13th day of December 2021.
Okay, we'll vote and then we'll record and then we'll do a second reading. All right, bill number 700, I'll entertain a motion. Will become ordinance 699 if it passes.
I'll make a motion that bill number 700 will become ordinance number 699 if passed.
Have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ready again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, bill number 700, do I say ordinance 699?
You can now.
Ordinance 699, an ordinance calling for the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse to decide whether the position of city collector shall remain an elected position pursuant to RSMO 79.050 and providing for submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the general election called and to be held in the city of Morehouse, Missouri on April 5th, 2022. Whereas the Board of Aldermen for the city of Morehouse, Missouri desire that the control and oversight of municipal offices be directed by the qualified voters of the city, and whereas the city is authorized under RSMO 79.050 to permit the voters to decide whether the position of city collector shall remain as an elected position or provide the authority for the mayor, upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen, to appoint a city collector. And whereas the Board of Aldermen requests the input of the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse, Missouri regarding this matter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri as follows. Section 1. Pursuant to the authority granted by RSMO 79.050 as amended, the position of city collector, which at the current time is an elected office with a term of 2 years, may be submitted to the voters to determine whether the position shall remain as an elected position or be subject to appointment by the mayor upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen. Section 2. This measure shall be submitted to the qualified voters of Morehouse, Missouri for their approval as required by the provisions of RSMO 79.050, at the election hereby called and to be held in the city on April 5th, 2022. The ballot of submission shall contain substantially the following language. Shall the position of city collector in and for the city of Morehouse, Missouri be abolished in favor of a city collector position which is appointed by the mayor upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen. If this proposition passes, the office of the city collector shall be abolished and the city collector shall be appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen, and said appointee would not be required to be a resident of the city of Morehouse, Missouri. If this proposition fails, the position will remain an elected position, and candidates for the office shall remain required to reside within the city limits. If you are in favor of the question, place an X in the box opposite yes. If you are opposed to the question, place an X in the box opposite no. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of its passage and approval. Section 4, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage and approval by the Board of Aldermen in the city of Morehouse, Missouri. Second reading of the Board of Aldermen in the city of Morehouse, Missouri is 13th day of December 2021.
I'll entertain a motion to pass bill number 700, ordinance 699.
Make a motion we pass bill number 700, ordinance number 699.
Have a motion on the floor?
A second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Maybe I'll read this one. Passed by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri, this 13th day of December 2021. I've got two more copies. Okay.
All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda is bill number 701. At this time, the clerk will read bill number 701.
This is City Marshal.
That is correct.
An ordinance calling for the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse to decide whether the position of city marshal shall remain an elected position pursuant to RSMO 79.050, and providing for the submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the general election called and to be held in the city of Morehouse, Missouri on April 5th, 2022. Whereas the Board of Aldermen for the city of Morehouse, Missouri desire that the control and oversight of municipal offices be directed by the qualified voters of the city, and whereas the city is authorized under RSMO 79.050 to permit the voters to decide whether the position of city marshal shall remain as an elected position or provide the authority for the mayor to appoint a chief of police, and whereas the Board of Aldermen requests the input of the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse, Missouri regarding this matter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri as follows. Section 1, pursuant to the authority granted by RSMO 79.050 as amended, the position of city marshal, which at the current time is an elected office with a term of 2 years, may be submitted to the voters to determine whether the position shall remain an elected position or be abolished in favor of a chief of police, subject to appointment by the mayor upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen. Section 2, this measure shall be submitted to the qualified voters of Morehouse, Missouri for their approval as required by the provisions of RSMO 79.050 at the election hereby called and to be held in the city on April the 5th, 2022. The ballot of submission shall contain substantially the following language. Shall the position of city marshal in and for the city of Morehouse, Missouri be abolished in favor of a chief of police, which is appointed by the mayor upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen? If this position is approved, the office of city marshal shall be abolished, and the mayor, upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen, may appoint a chief of police, said appointee not being required to live within the city limits of Morehouse, Missouri. If this proposition fails, the position will remain an elected position, and candidates for the office shall remain required to reside within the city limits. If you are in favor of the question, place an X in the box opposite yes. If you are opposed to the question, place an X in the box opposite no. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of its passage and approval. Section 4, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage and approval by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri. First reading of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri is 13th day of December 20.
All right, have a motion on,
That's 2022. Should be 2021.
all right, I'll entertain a motion for bill number 701.
Make a motion, we accept and pass bill number 701.
Have a motion on the floor?
I have some
Second.
discussion.
Motion and a second, all in favor? We'll go ahead with your discussion.
Okay, so that I'm clear, I mean, and everybody who watches this, if this passes in April, then when would it take effect?
The message, which I read it to you in my office from the city attorney, is if the voters of the city decide to abolish the office of city marshal and go with a hired chief of police, then it would be moot. Meaning, regardless of whoever wins the election, then the board would be able to hire who they want, and the person would not have to reside within city limits.
Okay.
If we keep it the way it is, the city is responsible for paying the money to send someone to train, and there's no obligation on the individual who we send to get trained to stick with it. Where we could potentially be out the money to send someone to school, and then they could get their certification and move on to a bigger city that will obviously pay them. That is my understanding by the city attorney.
So if it passes, if it were to pass, then effective April 22, we could appoint, we could appoint someone as the chief of police.
Correct.
Okay, so it nullifies basically the election results.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded?
Bobby?
Bobby. So now go back and read Bill, ordinance 700.
Ordinance 701, ordinance 7.
Bill 701, ordinance 700. An ordinance calling for the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse to decide whether the position of city marshal shall remain an elected position pursuant to RSMO 79.050 and providing for submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the general election called and to be held in the city of Morehouse, Missouri on April 5th, 2022. Whereas the Board of Aldermen for the city of Morehouse, Missouri desire that the control and oversight of municipal offices be directed by the qualified voters of the city. And whereas the city is authorized under RSMO 79.050 to permit the voters to decide whether the position of city marshal shall remain as an elected position or provide the authority for the mayor to appoint a chief of police. And whereas the Board of Aldermen requests the input of the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse, Missouri regarding this matter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri as follows. Section 1. Pursuant to the authority granted by RSMO 79050 as amended, the position of city marshal, which is at the current time is an elected office, with a term of 2 years, may be submitted to the voters to determine whether the position shall remain as an elected position or be abolished in favor of a chief of police, subject to appointment by the mayor upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen. Section 2, this measure shall be submitted to the qualified voters of Morehouse, Missouri for their approval as required by the provisions of RSMO 79.050 at the election hereby called and to be held in the city on April 5th, 2022. The ballot of submission shall contain substantially the following language. Shall the position of city marshal in for the city of Morehouse, Missouri be abolished in favor for a chief of police, which is appointed by the mayor upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen. If this position is approved, the office of city marshal shall be abolished, and the mayor, upon the advice and consent of the Board of Aldermen, may appoint a chief of police, said appointee not being required to live within the city limits of Morehouse, Missouri. If this proposition fails, the position will remain an elected position, and candidates for the office shall remain required to reside within the city limits. If you are in favor of the question, place an X in the box opposite yes. If you are opposed to the question, place an X in the box opposite no. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of this passage and approval. Section 4, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage and approval by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri. Second reading of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri, this 13th day of December 2021.
I'll entertain a motion for bill number 701, ordinance number 700.
I'll make a motion, we accept bill number 701, ordinance number 700.
Have a motion on the floor?
A second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Well,
All right. Next item on the agenda.
use tax.
drink of water?
Yeah. I don't know why you wanted me to read them.
Well, yeah.
This is Bill 703.
702. At this time, the clerk will read bill number 702.
Bill number 702, an ordinance calling for the qualified voters of the City of Morehouse for the referendum of a local use tax pursuant to RSMO 144.757 and providing for submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the general election called and to be held in the City of Morehouse, Missouri on April 5th, 2022. Whereas the Board of Aldermen for the City of Morehouse, Missouri are preparing to update revenue sources in order to keep pace with increasing online purchases that do not support local business or city services. And whereas the city is authorized under RSMO 144.757 to authorize a referendum to the qualified voters of the City of Morehouse whether to collect a local use tax designed to ensure that out-of-state retailers also help to maintain Morehouse's maintenance, protection, and quality of city services. And whereas the Board of Aldermen requests the input of the qualified voters of the City of Morehouse, Missouri regarding this matter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri as follows. Section 1. Pursuant to the authority granted by, is that supposed to be statute?
Revised statute.
Revised statute, Missouri 144.757 as amended, the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri hereby approve a referendum to impose a local use tax at the same rate as the total local sales tax rate, provided that if the local sales tax rate is reduced or raised by voter approval, the local use tax rate shall also be reduced or raised in the same fashion by the same action. Section 2. This measure shall be submitted to the qualified voters of Morehouse, Missouri for their approval as required by the revised statute of Missouri 144.757 at the election hereby called and to be held in the city on April 5th, 2022. The ballot of submission shall contain substantially the following language. Shall the City of Morehouse, Missouri impose a local use tax at the same rate as the total local sales tax rate, provided that if the local sales tax rate is reduced or raised by voter approval, the local use tax rate shall also be reduced or raised in the same fashion by the same action. If you're in favor of the question, place an X in the box opposite yes. If you're opposed to the question, place an X in the box opposite no. Section 3. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of its passage and approval. Section 4. This ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage and approved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri. First reading of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Morehouse, Missouri, this 13th day of December 2021.
All right, clerk has read bill number 702. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we accept bill number 702.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? At this time, the clerk will read bill number 702, ordinance number 701.
Bill 702, ordinance 701, an ordinance calling for the qualified voters of the City of Morehouse for the referendum of a local use tax pursuant to RSMO 144.757 and provided for submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the general election called to be held in the city of Morehouse, Missouri on April 5th, 2022. Whereas the Board of Aldermen for the city of Morehouse, Missouri are preparing to update revenue sources on order to keep pace with increasing online purchases that do not support local businesses or city services. And whereas the city is authorized under revised statute Missouri 144.757 to authorize a referendum to the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse whether to collect a local use tax designed to ensure that out-of-state retailers also help to maintain Morehouse's maintenance, protection, and quality of city services. And whereas the Board of Aldermen requests the input of the qualified voters of the city of Morehouse, Missouri regarding this matter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri as follows. Section 1. Pursuant to the authority granted by the revised statute Missouri 144.757 as amended, the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri hereby approve a referendum to impose a local use tax at the same rate as the total local sales tax rate, provided that if the local sales tax rate is reduced or raised by voter approval, the local use tax rate shall also be reduced or raised in the same fashion by the same action. This measure shall be submitted to the qualified voters of Morehouse, Missouri for their approval as required by the provisions of revised statute Missouri 144.757 at the election hereby called and to be held in the city on April 5th, 2022. The ballot of submission shall contain substantially the following language. Shall the city of Morehouse, Missouri impose a local use tax at the same rate as the total local sales tax rate, provided that if the local sales tax rate is reduced or raised by voter approval, the local use tax rate shall also be reduced or raised in the same fashion by the same action. If you are in favor of the question, place an X in the box opposite yes. If you're opposed to the question, place an X in the box opposite no. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force of effect from and after the date of its passage and approval. Section 4, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage and approval by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri. Second reading of the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri, this 13th day of December, 2021.
Clerk has read for the second time, bill number 702, ordinance 701. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we accept bill number 702, ordinance number 701.
Have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed by the Board of Aldermen of the city of Morehouse, Missouri, this 13th day of December, 2021.
Okay. Kind of jumped around here, waiting to see when you come in, Matt.
Well, it would have been less if they hadn't gone down rabbit holes. So.
Well, that happens from time to
It
time.
does.
Let me tell you. Okay, so I guess since we have James still here, we've tabled, let me find it. You can review that. James Whitley is our fire chief. He had applied for a grant through the Conservation Department for some pagers for the fire department. He was awarded the grant for a total of 22 pagers, and the total dollar amount $7,000. I gave it to him.
$79.86.
$79.86. The question that I and the board have, can we use capital improvement funds to purchase these pagers? We have to pay for up front the total cost, and then
you get reimbursed.
we get reimbursed 50% of the cost.
I don't think so, but I'll check into that.
Okay.
Give me about a day.
Understood.
On that.
As soon as I find something out, James, I'll let you know, and we'll schedule a special session. All right. So one other question I had for you real quick, Matt, was a preventative maintenance agreement for all the new pumps and equipment we've got at the lift station.
Okay.
Would that be considered a capital improvement?
I believe so.
Okay.
About our-
What about ARPA funds?
That I don't know. I do have materials on that though, actually with me, so I'll check on that tomorrow.
So we'll leave both of those items.
Let me start writing this down for you.
The preventative maintenance agreement for Vanderventor for the lift station will remain tabled pending advisement from the city attorney. And the grant for the pagers for the fire department will also remain tabled pending advisement from the city attorney. All right. Number 18 on y'all's agenda, that's no longer need to be discussed because per the lease agreement for the printer, it's 0.09 cents, so less than a penny per copy to print in color if we go over, and it's more expensive to get letterhead, color letterhead bought in 500-page lots. So we can mark that off the agenda.
And I was just gonna say, we've had, only one overage, to date for 4 copies with that lease agreement. Unfortunately, we just signed it in June, so there's no negotiation as far as increasing it, but, since then, we've only had one time that we went over and it was for $63.
Okay. Item number 19, you'll see on your agenda. The current phone system, the landlines that we have at City Hall, only have one line. We have 2 phone numbers, 2 phone lines, but if Ms. Gail or Ms. Patty is on a line, or if I'm on a line, if someone tries to call in, it just rings and rings and rings and rings. And the same goes for if a fax comes through, it won't go to the fax machine. So Tony went through and looked at different phone systems that provide answering service, multiple lines, and I would like to set a budget of $300 for phones. The problem I'm running into is when I try to find them, Best Buy has one component, Walmart.com has one component. I've not been able to find one supplier that has the base with the handset and then 2 additional handsets.
We got ours through Amazon, just that might be a good place to look.
Yeah, I looked on Amazon for the models that we were looking, the only thing they had were used ones. And I don't want to go buying used. So if the board, the $300 budget, we can get it comfortable.
Want a motion?
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we budget $300 for a new phone system for City Hall.
Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Then the next item is external hard drives, so the city collector and the city clerk can back up their computers. I've looked online, and for a 1 terabyte hard drive, a Toshiba brand through Walmart, you can get them for $36 and some change. So if we're needing 2 of those, I'd say if we could set a budget for $75, we should be able to come in pretty close to getting that. Any questions or concerns of the need of why we need to back up the
Are
computers?
you sure that's gonna be enough? You don't wanna say 100?
I mean, we can budget 100 just for sales tax, but we're tax exempt, so,
Just in case the price is different locations.
Let's do 100.
I'll make a motion that we set a budget of $100 for external drives for computers at City Hall.
have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We've just been jumping around, but I think when it comes to new business, Alderman Hodgkins, you have some banking information you'd like to touch on?
Yes.
I'll turn that over to you.
I have would like us to consider maybe taking a look at another financial institution. I just picked 4 random ones in town. There's been some discussion. I mean, I don't have a preference one way or the other. Here's what their rates are, what they can do for us. We have Montgomery Bank, First Midwest Bank, we have First State Community Bank, and First State Bank and Trust. Of course, everybody's kind of along the same lines as far as their, what they offer in their business. Most of them even said that they, with their business accounts, that if there was a service fee, that they might, would waive it for us, so that we're not. But I just, and I know that's a lot to digest all of, one particular meeting, but if we could maybe everybody take a look at it. I know Darren's not here. I've even got a pack for the treasurer to take a look at, and then maybe put it back on the agenda in January.
I'm open to that. This entity here, there's no fees, this one has a packet, this one has a price sheet.
Well,
which this is,
I started to,
this one.
yeah. And some of them, I started to say, this one might be one that was just online for the statement itself. I mean, for the actual fees. I thought I had another, I thought these actually had 2 pamphlets instead of just one. But that's a different one. I can get another one. I don't know.
I know Montgomery and First Midwest
Yes,
both have a rate structure.
right.
Services and rate structure. This one's got a nice colored brochure, but they're not getting none of the meat and potatoes in here.
So, I will, I can ask again. Like I said, I know there was another brochure that had some information. Well, you got First State and Bank Trust. Is that the one that you didn't think that had? Yeah, this is their, it doesn't have their business account listed though. It's just regular checking accounts, not their business. But anyway, so I can follow up again and get it to the clerk and she can get it to everybody, put it in your folder. But like I said, I just,
Works for me. We can table it and revisit it in January.
okay.
I entertain a motion to table. Well, that's a new business. We'll do that.
Okay.
We'll just add it to the agenda for January. All right.
And I have one more thing under new business.
Okay, and then I've got some.
Okay.
Go for it.
So I would like to make a motion that we give $500 to the fire department for their candy, for their Christmas. I actually have another local individual that is willing to match that. So that would be a total of $1,000 to the fire department to support the Christmas Eve Santa Claus. So,
Have a motion,
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else under new business?
that's all I got.
Alderman Billsley, you have anything under new business? Alderman Deal?
I just want to speak on something that Chief Whitley and I were talking about Friday night, and the mayor and I have talked about this before. You know, the bad storms that went through Friday night, of course, was very devastating to a lot of areas, and, a lot of places didn't have much notice. We don't have an operating tornado siren here currently, and we need to do all we can, I believe, to get a new one or use one or whatever. Even 10 minutes or 15 minutes is a help for some people. So whatever we need to do, I know Chief Whitley's got some ideas or some contacts, and I know the mayor has some contacts possibly, so we'll work together. We need to get that done. Springtime's coming up, so there's gonna be some more big bad storms coming through, so we got extremely lucky because that storm could have been right through here. So.
All right, I agree. And to expound on that further, I spoke to James prior to the meeting, and I'd sent y'all an email where I talked to Brad over at Boot Hill Regional on when the FEMA grant window opens for, they call them inclement weather sirens.
Right.
And then I know Jimmy and James both spoke of maybe, what do you call it, New Madrid County disaster
Emergency management.
emergency management. James is, we spoke before the meeting tonight. He's going to give me some contact information for them, see if they know some sources for funding as well. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Under new business, one thing that our budget ordinance, Matt, I'm gonna be getting that sent to you.
Okay.
If you could, we had our budget meeting, we got all our numbers nailed down, but we need to get that
Okay.
in ordinance format so we can get that passed.
Okay.
All right. And then I already spoke on something else I had in new business, which was the county approving the phase 2 for the lift station. So that's a positive thing. I've still, just so the public's aware, I've not heard back from Boot Hill Regional or Department of Economic Development on the community center grant, the CDBG-CV grant, and I have not heard back from Department of Economic Development or Boot Hill Regional Planning Commission on the streets and drainage grant. So we were in hopes, it was when Ms. Cammy was here, in hopes that we would know something by the end of the year on the CDBG-CV grant, and it won't be until probably mid-spring or so before we know anything about the streets and drainage grant. But we have applied for both grants, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully something happens for us. James? None? Ms. Patty? Ms. Brown? Okay, I'll turn it over to members of the public. Mo? Ma'am? Ma'am?
Actually, the Star.
Aye. Yes.
That's right.
Yes, yes. See, hard to keep me on track sometimes.
Update on the water plant.
Yeah, update on the water plant. The storm that come through, not just Friday evening, but on Sunday, lightning struck the water plant. So I know a lot of people noticed that the crystal star was no longer working. The lightning got it as well. So Vanderbilt come down and they figured out everything that was wrong with the water plant. That water plant, everything is electronic in it. So they've got a bid, or an estimate, spoke with the insurance company, and the insurance adjuster finally got back with me again today. I forwarded everything over to the insurance adjuster. So hopefully soon we will be, and the total damages just on the electronics on the water plant was a little over $9,000. So most of the components Vanderbilt has in stock. So once we get the word from the insurance adjuster how they're going to proceed, then we'll probably be calling a special session to move forward and get that voted on, because the plant's being ran in manual right now instead of automatic mode. So that'd be a good thing to get it back up running. All right, good reminder. Thank you, ma'am, sir.
The water plant, does it have surge protection on it?
It does. There's
Lightning protection, I know you can't cover that.
There's surge arresters and surge protection. There's surge protectors on each PLC in the plant, and then there's a main one in the SCADA system. But it didn't come through like it hit a transformer and came into the
No,
building.
it hit direct.
It either hit the water tower and followed the piping into the plant, or it struck the ground and went into the piping and then up into the plant.
Yeah, surge protector won't protect against that.
Yeah, because it came from the back side, instead of power side in, it came from the piping side, because it popped three, they're called electromagnetic flow meters. It got 3 of those, but fortunately it just got the electronic displays and the control panels on those flow meters and not the actual flow meters themselves. So the plant does have surge arresters and surge protectors.
If you get the contract with these people to take care of the generator and stuff, how often would they come?
They would come once a year
once a year?
to do the maintenance on the
And
generator.
it does cycle once a month?
It cycles once a week, every
Every
Monday
Monday.
for 30 minutes.
Okay. Who checks on that machine?
Well, just.
Is there anybody there when it
general-
comes on?
Well,
Is it set to come on at a certain time?
Yes, it's automatically set. I get a text alert on my phone
Okay.
every time the transfer switch, the generator, it'll say generator powered on, and then it'll be another text alert that says transfer switch to auxiliary power.
Does
And then-
anybody ever check on that unit?
This repairman coming out a week or so ago back was the first time anybody's been there to have a look-see at it.
I mean, just to make sure the water's right, the oil's right,
Yes,
the fuel's right,
yes.
you know. If you don't check on that stuff, you're gonna
Well-
bite the bullet one of these days.
Well, and that was my premise earlier was, yeah, it sounds like a lot of money to enter into a service agreement, but making sure that the oil's changed in that, the fuel filters, I mean, everybody knows it has diesels. You want to change your or fuel filters on
You don't
diesel.
want water in your system.
Correct.
And they will, and when those tanks get down half low or something, they'll condensate inside, and that's when you get water in the system. If you don't keep it full, you're taking a chance of getting that water moisture inside your diesel engines. And then you really got problems.
Get algae and mold as well.
Yep.
I know we
Are
tabled
we adding
that.
power service to that?
The fuel company said that, but that's something we do need to add fire service. When I had diesel trucks, I always added
They
it.
say, even though, yeah, and that's the same thing with mine, even though they say DGA and Santee Oil and everybody else who has fuel, they say they put fire service in there, it's still, yeah, you'll get algae in it and that it'll gel up. and
It'll gel
whatever,
and-
yeah.
Yeah, when it gets
So,
cold.
even it's like, I mean, we just bought fuel and re-put up, topped off our generators right for this cold season. We put power service in every one of them. I went in and added to every single.
How much fuel do you think that thing burns every time it cycles?
Now that, I don't know. I do know it has a 1,000-gallon tank. James, what's the tank there where you're at? How many gallons is it? How much power service did you add?
So our tank, we have a fuel tank behind our station, 1,000 gallons. And we had 4 gallons of that white power service in the wintertime. And then we use the silver during the summer to keep the algae out of it and stuff. But every time we fill it up for 1,000 gallons, we use 4 gallons.
4 gallons per 1,000.
Yes.
Were we gonna ask Matt, because we tabled that maintenance, or that equipment maintenance agreement from Cummins, were we gonna ask him a question? Do you remember? I can't remember now. If we could.
Pay it out, yeah,
Pay it out of-
ARPA or whatever.
No, not ARPA, capital improvement.
Yeah.
Right, I've got that down as something.
Okay, that's for the generator, and then we got a preventative maintenance agreement on the lift stations as well.
So there's a question about, can we use it for the generator?
Yes,
Or-
for a preventative maintenance agreement for the genset and for the lift stations in town. We
Okay,
had 2 preventative maintenance
Yeah.
agreements. Those just came in today.
Okay.
I don't have them in my packet.
Okay.
We'll get those next month. That was for
Okay.
the
Garage.
calls here, the garage,
Okay,
because I don't even have them with me.
okay.
Well, I don't know if they have them. We'll just get them next month. Okay, so where was that? You, sir? You, sir? I'm good. Okay. All right then, well, nothing else. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion, second, all in favor? And we got a personnel meeting following that. Appreciate everyone coming out tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.